Commander Juan sat in his office on Luna Base, staring at the message that had arrived just 30 minutes ago. The words on his screen seemed impossible, but the source was real. The Galactic Council had sent this directly to Earth's highest diplomatic authority. Humans must stop talking to other species immediately. You have 7 days to agree. If you refuse, we will destroy all human colonies and Earth itself. Juan read the message 3 more times. Each time, it made less sense. Humans had been part of the galactic community for only 15 years. They had been careful, polite, and helpful in every interaction. Earth had shared technology, offered aid during the Centauri crisis, and even helped broker peace between the Altarian Republic and the Vega Coalition. Why would anyone want to destroy humanity for talking? His door chimed. "Come in," Juan called. Dr. Minji entered, carrying a thick tablet and looking worried. She was Earth's top expert on alien languages, the woman who had helped create the translation protocols that made galactic communication possible. Her black hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she had the tired look of someone who had been working all night. "You got the message too?" she asked, sitting down across from his desk. 27 different alien governments signed it, Juan said, including species that have never agreed on anything before. The Vorthak Empire is leading the demand, but even the Peaceful Harmony Collective agreed to it. Minji set her tablet on the desk. "I've been going through all our communication records since first contact. I can't find anything we said that should have caused this reaction. Our translators have been perfect. We've been more polite than necessary in every single exchange." Juan stood and walked to the window. Outside, he could see Earth hanging in space like a blue marble. Soon, transport ships would start arriving to evacuate the outer colonies. The government had already begun secret preparations. But 7 days was not enough time to move 4 billion people from off-world settlements. "There has to be something," he said. "Nobody threatens genocide over hurt feelings." That's what I thought, too. Minji picked up her tablet and swiped through several screens. "But look at this. I found something strange in the Vorthak communications. They don't call our language human language. They call it chaos speech." Chaos speech? And there's more. In every official document, they refer to humans as the reality breakers. I've never seen that term used for any other species. Juan turned back to face her. "What do they mean by that?" "I don't know, but I think we need to find out." "The transport ship Semantic Dawn is ready to leave for Concordia Station. The Vorthak agreed to meet us there in 3 days. You and I are going. Is that wise? If they really want to destroy us, Concordia is neutral territory. Even the Vorthak won't break those rules. Besides, it's our only chance to understand what's happening before—" She gestured toward Earth. "Before they try to keep their promise." 2 hours later, Juan and Minji were aboard the Semantic Dawn, heading toward the edge of the solar system. The ship was small but fast, designed for diplomatic missions. Captain Daiho, a quiet man with steady hands, piloted them past Mars and toward the jump point that would take them to Concordia. During the journey, Minji worked constantly, trying to decode the alien messages. She had learned 17 different alien languages over the past 15 years, but something about the recent communications puzzled her. "Juan, come look at this," she called from her workstation. He floated over in the low gravity. "What did you find?" "I've been analyzing the exact words the Vorthak use when they talk about humans. Look at this phrase." She pointed to a line of alien text on her screen. In Vorthak, this translates to "the ones who break meaning itself." break meaning. And here they say humans poison understanding and corrupt pure thought. It's almost like they think our language is some kind of weapon. Juan studied the translations. We've always been careful to use their exact words when we talk to them. Our computers double-check every translation. That's just it. I don't think the problem is wrong translations. I think the problem is right translations. What do you mean? Minji pulled up another screen. When we first met the Vorthak, their translator said, "We demand respect from humans." Our computer translated it perfectly, but in the diplomatic response, we said, "We request mutual respect." Do you see the difference? We were being more polite. Exactly. We changed demand to request. It means the same thing, but it's softer, more diplomatic. Every human would understand that. But look at the Vorthak response. She showed him the alien text. Even without translation, Juan could see it was much longer than normal Vorthak messages. They spent 3 pages analyzing why we used a different word. They kept asking if request meant something different from demand. They wanted to know if we were trying to change the meaning of the conversation. That seems like a reasonable question, but we do it all the time, Juan. Humans constantly choose different words that mean almost the same thing. We say big, or large, or huge, or enormous. We say happy, or glad, or pleased, or delighted. It's natural for us. Juan began to understand. You think they don't do that? I think they can't do that. Look at every alien language I've studied. Each concept has exactly one word. They don't have synonyms. That's impossible. Every language has multiple ways to say the same thing. Human languages do, but I don't think alien languages work the same way. When a Vorthak says demand, there is no other word they could use. When they say respect, that's the only way to express that concept. But humans have dozens of words for the same idea. The implications hit Juan like a physical blow. So when we use different words, they think we're changing reality itself. From their perspective, if demand and request mean the same thing, then we're saying that 2 different concepts are actually identical. It would be like saying that up and down are the same direction. Captain Deho's voice came through the ship's communication system. We're approaching the jump point, preparing for hyperspace. Juan strapped himself into his chair as the ship's engines began to whine. If you're right, then every conversation we've had with aliens has been terrifying to them, Minji finished. We've been accidentally convincing them that we can rewrite the rules of meaning itself. The stars outside the window suddenly stretched into lines as the semantic dawn entered hyperspace. In 3 days, they would reach Concordia Station and face the Vorthak representatives. Now Juan understood why the aliens were so afraid. Humans didn't just speak differently. They thought differently, and somehow that difference was dangerous enough that 27 alien civilizations were willing to commit genocide to stop it. As the ship traveled through hyperspace toward what might be humanity's last diplomatic meeting, Juan wondered if there was any way to explain to the aliens that humans weren't trying to break reality. They were just trying to communicate. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized that maybe, from the aliens' perspective, those 2 things were exactly the same. The semantic dawn continued its journey toward Concordia Station, carrying Earth's hopes and humanity's fate in its small cargo bay full of words that might mean more than anyone had ever imagined. The massive crystal towers of Nexus Prime stretched toward the amber sky like frozen lightning. Inside the largest tower, representatives from 847 different species sat in a circle that seemed to go on forever. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime to turn clicks, whistles, and roars into words everyone could understand. Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim sat in the human section, his hands folded on the polished table. At 45, his black hair was starting to show gray at the temples. 20 years of diplomatic service had taught him patience, but today that patience was wearing thin. Next to him, Dr. Yoonji Park typed notes on her tablet, her face carefully neutral. Captain Do-Young Lee sat behind them, his military uniform crisp despite the long hours. This was the 847th Galactic Peace Conclave. Humans had been attending these meetings for 15 years now. 15 years of listening to other species argue about territory, trade routes, and mining rights. 15 years of being told that humanity was too young to understand galactic politics. The current speaker was Counselor Vexithara, a tall creature with purple skin and 4 arms. The Zentorians had been opposing human expansion since the day humans first left their home system. Vexithara's voice was smooth and reasonable, which somehow made his words worse. The human colonies in the Kepler sector must be redistributed, Vexithara said. For the sake of galactic harmony, of course. The Aquarians need those water worlds more than humans do. After all, humans can live anywhere. Hyunwoo kept his face calm, but his jaw tightened. Those colonies housed 3 million people. They had been there for 8 years, building cities and farms from nothing. Now the council wanted to just give them away. Dr. Yoonji leaned over and whispered, "The Aquarians already have 12 water worlds. They just want those ones because they're closer to the trade routes." High Arbiter Quindala floated above the center of the circle. The ancient ethereal being was supposed to be neutral, but Hyunwoo had noticed that neutrality often favored everyone except humans. Quindala's voice echoed strangely when it spoke. "The proposal has merit," Quindala said. "Humans are adaptable. They can establish colonies elsewhere." "Where?" Hyunwoo asked, standing up. His voice carried clearly through the vast chamber. "Every time we find a suitable world, this council finds a reason why we can't have it. Either it's too close to someone else's space, or it's a holy site, or it's needed for some greater purpose." Vexithara's 4 eyes focused on Hyunwoo. "Ambassador Kim, surely you can see the wisdom in compromise. Humans have been most fortunate in their expansion. Perhaps it is time to share that fortune." Hyunwoo looked around the circle. He saw the same expression on hundreds of alien faces, polite dismissal. They were humoring him, like adults listening to a child complain about bedtime. "Share," Hyunwoo repeated. "Let me tell you about sharing, Counselor Vexithara. Humans provide 23% of the galactic defense forces. Our ships patrol borders, fight pirates, and keep trade routes safe. When the Hive attacked the crystalline worlds 2 years ago, who stopped them? Human Marines died on 17 different planets to save people who barely acknowledge we exist." The chamber grew quiet. Hyunwoo could feel Captain Do-Young shifting. Behind him, probably wishing he could stand up too. "When the plague hit Sector 7, Hyunwoo continued, human doctors worked for months to find a cure. They saved 40 million lives across 6 species. When the quantum storms threatened to tear apart the Vorthon system, human engineers rebuilt their sun shield in 4 days. But we're too young to understand politics?" Vexithara spread his 4 arms in a gesture of false reasonableness. "No one disputes human contributions, Ambassador, but enthusiasm must be balanced with wisdom. Perhaps if humans accepted junior partner status with advisory voting rights only, the Council could better guide your species' development." The suggestion hit the chamber like a physical blow. Junior partner status, advisory voting only. After everything humans had done, after all the blood they had shed and the problems they had solved, the Council wanted to make them second-class citizens. Dr. Yoonji's tablet cracked in her grip. Behind them, Captain Do-Young made a sound like a growl. But Hyunwoo just smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Junior partners?" he said softly. "I see." He looked around the circle again, meeting as many eyes as he could. Some species couldn't make eye contact with humans, but he tried anyway. These beings had worked with humans for 15 years. They had seen human courage, human ingenuity, human sacrifice, and they thought humans were children who needed guidance. "I have something to tell you all," Hyunwoo said. His voice was calm, professional, but there was something underneath it that made even the translator devices pause. "This is humanity's final statement to the Galactic Council." The chamber went completely silent. Even the background hum of the translation devices seemed to fade. "We withdraw from these talks," Hyunwoo said. "Effective immediately, humanity will pursue its own path. We will no longer participate in council decisions. We will no longer provide council services. We will no longer pretend that this body represents anything resembling justice or wisdom." He picked up his tablet and stylus, moving with careful precision. Dr. Yoonji and Captain Do-young stood as well, their movements synchronized like a military drill. "You cannot simply leave," Vexithara said, his voice higher than before. "The galactic community needs structure, needs guidance. Humans cannot survive alone in the void." Hyunwoo paused at the edge of the human section. "Counselor Vexithara, we have never been alone in the void. We have been alone in this chamber, surrounded by people who took our help while treating us like children. There is a difference." He turned to address the entire assembly one last time. "To those species who have dealt with us fairly, who have treated us as equals, humanity remembers its friends. To those who have not, we wish you well in your future endeavors. You will have many opportunities to show how much you value the contributions you have dismissed." High Arbiter Quindala floated lower, its ethereal form shimmering with what might have been concern. "Ambassador Kim, surely this is hasty. Perhaps after a cooling-off period we can discuss new arrangements. Humans are emotional beings. You may regret decisions made in anger." Hyunwoo looked up at the ancient being. "Your Honor, this decision was not made in anger. It was made in disappointment. We offered you partnership, and you demanded submission. We offered you our best, and you told us it was not enough to earn respect. You are correct that humans are emotional beings. We feel loyalty, gratitude, and hope very deeply, but we also feel dignity." He bowed slightly, a formal diplomatic gesture. "We thank the Council for 15 years of education. You have taught us exactly where we stand in your estimation. Now you will learn where you stand in ours." The three humans walked toward the exit, their footsteps echoing in the massive chamber. Behind them, hundreds of species began talking at once, their voices creating a wall of sound that the translation devices could not handle. Vexithara's voice cut through the noise. "They will be back within a month. Humans cannot survive without the Council's guidance. This is merely a tantrum." Hyunwoo did not turn around, did not slow down, but his voice carried clearly through the chamber as he walked away. "Counselor Vexithara, humanity survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and the vacuum of space before we ever met you. We will remember that you think this is a tantrum. I hope you remember what we are capable of when we are serious." The great doors of the council chamber closed behind them with a sound like thunder. For the first time in 15 years, humanity was no longer represented in the Galactic Council. In the chamber they had left behind, 846 species continued their discussion about the human colonies that needed to be redistributed. Most of them were already planning how to divide up the responsibilities that humans had been handling. It seemed simple enough. After all, how hard could it be to replace 300 million humans who had been working across the galaxy for 15 years? They were just junior partners anyway. The real work was done by the senior species, the wise ones. the ones who understood galactic politics. The Council had made its decision. Now they would learn to live with the consequences, but that would come later. For now, they had important matters to discuss, like who would get the water worlds that humans had been foolish enough to develop, and how to properly divide the resources that humans had been sharing so freely. They did not notice that the chamber felt a little emptier, a little quieter. They did not think about the human ships that were already receiving new orders, or the human scientists who were packing their research, or the human engineers who were backing up their data. They would notice soon enough. Concordia Station hung in space like a giant wheel, spinning slowly against the backdrop of distant stars. The neutral station was built by 12 different species working together, and it showed. Each section had a different design, different colors, different ways of organizing space. It was the only place in the galaxy where any species could meet safely. Commander Juan watched through the window as the semantic dawn approached the docking bay. His stomach felt tight with worry. In a few hours, he would sit across from Vorthak representatives and try to save humanity from destruction. The problem was, he still didn't fully understand what humans had done wrong. Docking complete, Captain Deho announced from the pilot's seat. The Vorthak ship arrived 2 hours ago. They're waiting in conference room 7. Dr. Minji gathered her translation equipment and notes. She had spent the entire 3-day journey studying Vorthak language patterns, looking for clues about why human communication scared them so much. Her findings were disturbing. Remember, she told Juan as they prepared to leave the ship, use their exact words whenever possible. Don't try to be polite by softening the language. Don't use any word that means almost the same as another word. Stick to simple, direct statements. What if they say something that sounds rude? Let it sound rude. Don't try to make it nicer. When you respond, that might be exactly what's causing the problem. They walked through Concordia Station's main corridor. The station was busy with beings from dozens of different worlds. Juan saw the tall, blue-skinned Altarians talking with short, furry Centaurians. A group of crystal-based hegemony members sparkled as they moved past. Everyone seemed normal, peaceful, going about their business. It was hard to believe all these species wanted to destroy humanity. Conference Room 7 was designed for meetings between different species. The furniture could adjust to accommodate different body types. The air mixture could be changed for different breathing requirements. Translation equipment lined the walls, ready to convert any language into any other language instantly. 3. Vorthak representatives were already seated at the curved table. Juan had seen pictures of Vorthak before, but meeting them in person was different. They were roughly human-sized but thinner, with gray skin that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their faces were angular, with large dark eyes that never seemed to blink. They wore simple black robes without decoration. The center Vorthak stood as Juan and Minji entered. I am High Arbiter Thex Prime. These are sub-arbiters Vel and Nox. You are the human delegation. Yes, Juan replied carefully. I am Commander Juan. This is Dr. Minji, our language specialist. Sit. We will begin. The 3 Vorthak remained, standing until Juan and Minji were seated. Then they sat in perfect unison, their movements identical. It was unsettling to watch. Thex Prime placed a small device on the table. This conversation is being recorded for the Galactic Council. Do you agree to this recording? Yes, we agree. State your purpose for this meeting. Juan took a breath. We want to understand why the Galactic Council has demanded that humans stop communicating with other species. We have reviewed all our previous communications and found no violations of galactic law or diplomatic protocol. You have not violated law, Thex Prime said. You have violated reality. Minji leaned forward slightly. Can you explain what you mean by that? Your species uses chaos speech. You change meaning during communication. You break the connection between word and concept. This is dangerous to all thinking beings. We don't understand, Juan said. Can you give us an example? Thex Prime's dark eyes fixed on him. In your last diplomatic message to the Altarian Republic, you wrote, "Humanity begs for peaceful resolution of the trade dispute." But your translator spoke different words to the Altarian delegate. She said, "Humanity pleads for peaceful resolution." Explain this deception. Minji felt her heart skip. She remembered that conversation. The Altarian delegate had seemed upset about something, so she had instinctively chosen a gentler word. Begged sounded desperate and weak. Pleaded sounded more dignified, more respectful. There was no deception, she said carefully. The words mean the same thing. All three Vorthak made a sound like air being sucked through a narrow tube. Sub-Arbiter Vel spoke for the first time. Words cannot mean the same thing. Each word represents one concept. Each concept has one word. This is the foundation of communication. But in human languages, Minji began. Human languages are broken, Thex Prime interrupted. You have multiple words for single concepts. You choose different words to express identical meanings. This creates chaos in the semantic field. The semantic field? Juan asked. The connection between mind and reality. When you say beg and then say plead for the same concept, you damage this connection. You make other beings question the nature of meaning itself. Minji realized she was seeing something incredible. The Vorthak weren't just upset about translation errors. They genuinely believed that using synonyms somehow damaged reality. In Vorthak language, she said slowly, is there only one word for the concept of requesting help? Yes, the word thek. It means to request help when you cannot achieve your goal alone. There is no other word for this concept. What if the request is very formal, or very desperate, or very polite? The concept does not change. Only the intensity of need changes. But the word remains thek. Minji felt pieces of a puzzle clicking together in her mind. So when humans use different words for the same basic concept, you think we're trying to create new concepts? You are creating new concepts, Sub-Arbiter Nox said. Each word carries different semantic weight. When you say plead instead of beg, you split one concept into two concepts. You multiply meaning. This is chaos. But we're not trying to... Juan started. Thex Prime made a sharp gesture. Intent does not matter. Effect matters. Your species spreads semantic chaos wherever you communicate. Other species begin to question their own language structures. Some have started creating multiple words for single concepts, copying human patterns. This must stop. You're afraid that other species will start using synonyms? Minji asked. We are afraid that reality will lose coherence. Language shapes thought. Thought shapes reality. If beings can express the same concept in unlimited ways, then concepts lose meaning. If concepts lose meaning, then reality becomes fluid, changeable, chaotic. The room fell silent. Juan finally understood the scope of the problem. The aliens weren't just afraid of human language. They were afraid that human language would spread like a virus, infecting other species, and somehow breaking down the structure of reality itself. We never intended to cause harm, he said quietly. Intent does not change effect, Thex Prime repeated. Your species must choose. Accept semantic sterilization and join the galactic community with fixed-meaning communication, or continue using chaos speech and face elimination. Semantic sterilization? Surgical modification of human brains to prevent synonym generation. You would retain one word for each concept, like all civilized species. You would think clearly, communicate precisely, and live peacefully among other beings. Minji felt sick. They were talking about lobotomizing the entire human race, cutting out the part of human cognition that created poetry, literature, creative expression, the part that made humans human. And if we refuse? Juan asked. The Galactic Council has voted. 27 species agree. Chaos speech cannot be allowed to spread. If humans will not accept sterilization, they will be destroyed to prevent contamination of galactic communication. How long do we have to decide? 3 days remain. The council fleets are already mobilizing. Choose quickly. Thex Prime stood, and the other two Vorthak followed. This meeting is concluded. Next contact will be your final answer. They walked out of the conference room in the same perfect unison they had used when sitting down. Juan and Minji sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, Minji spoke. They really believe it. They think our language is going to destroy the universe. Maybe they're right, Juan said. Maybe human language is dangerous. Or maybe, said a new voice from the doorway, they're the ones who are wrong about how reality works. They turned to see a human woman in a researcher's coat standing in the entrance. She was young, with short black hair and intelligent eyes, behind wire-rimmed glasses. Dr. Kyung, she said, extending her hand. I'm a neurolinguist. I've been studying on Concordia for 2 years, researching how different species process language. I heard about your meeting. What did you mean about them being wrong? Minji asked. Dr. Kyung smiled grimly. I think I know why the aliens are really afraid of human language. And it's not what they told you. Dr. Kyung led Commander Juan and Dr. Minji to her research laboratory deep inside Concordia Station. The room was filled with strange equipment, devices that measured brain activity, translation computers taken apart and rebuilt, screens showing alien text patterns, and walls covered with charts comparing different species' language structures. I've been studying how different alien species process language for 2 years, Dr. Kyung explained as she pulled up data on her main screen. What I discovered changed everything I thought I knew about communication. She showed them a brain scan that looked like a human head, but the activity patterns were completely different from what Juan had seen in medical training. This is a Vorthak brain processing language, she said. Watch what happens when they hear a word. The scan showed a single bright spot lighting up in the brain, then staying perfectly steady. Now watch a human brain processing the same concept. The new scan showed multiple areas lighting up, flickering between different regions, creating complex patterns that moved and changed. Humans don't just understand words, Dr. Kyung continued. We experience them. When you hear the word water, your brain activates memories of drinking, swimming, rain, oceans, ice, steam. You connect the word to emotions, experiences, possibilities. But when a Vorthak hears their word for water, only one specific brain region activates. They understand the exact definition and nothing else. Dr. Minji stared at the brain scans. So they really do think differently than we do. Completely differently. And that's not the most important part. Look at this. Dr. Kyung pulled up a new set of readings. These are measurements of what I call conceptual energy, the electromagnetic patterns that brains produce when processing ideas. Every thinking species produces these patterns. But humans, the human readings were chaotic, full of spikes, and waves and overlapping signals. Our conceptual energy is wild, unpredictable. We're constantly generating new patterns, new connections, new ways of understanding the same ideas. But alien species, the alien readings were perfectly regular, like the ticking of a clock. Their conceptual energy is stable, predictable, identical from one individual to another. When one Vorthak thinks about water, they produce exactly the same brain pattern as every other Vorthak who has ever thought about water. Commander Juan felt a chill. You're saying we actually think differently at a physical level. More than that. I think human consciousness might be fundamentally different from all other known life in the galaxy. Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights bathed the laboratory in red. The station's communication system crackled to life. All personnel report to emergency stations. We are receiving distress signals from multiple human colonies. This is not a drill. The three humans ran to the nearest communication center. Other beings throughout the station were gathered around screens, watching news feeds from across the galaxy. The images were horrifying. The first feed showed the human colony on Kepler 442b. The colonial city looked normal from a distance, but something was wrong with the people. Colonists wandered through the streets, looking confused and lost. Some sat on the ground staring at nothing. Others opened and closed their mouths as if trying to speak, but no words came out. A news reporter's voice spoke over the images. The colonists appear to be physically unharmed, but they seem unable to communicate. Medical teams report that the colonists can see, hear, and move normally, but they cannot form words or understand speech. This is Captain Deho of the Earth Defense Force ship Resilience, a familiar voice said over the communication channel. We responded to the distress call from Kepler Colony. The situation is unlike anything we've encountered. Captain Deho's face appeared on screen. He looked shaken and confused. The colonists are alive and healthy, but they've lost the ability to use language. They recognize objects and people, but they can't name them. They understand that others are trying to communicate, but the words don't seem to have meaning for them anymore. Dr. Kyung grabbed Juan's arm. The Vorthak started their attack, but they're not destroying colonies. They're destroying language itself. More reports came in from other human settlements. Tau Ceti Station reported the same symptoms. The mining facilities on Wolf 359 sent confused messages before going silent. The research outpost at Proxima Centauri transmitted garbled communications. That made no sense. All the reports showed the same pattern, humans alive but unable to communicate, as if the language centers of their brains had been wiped clean. How is this possible? Dr. Minji whispered. I think I know, Dr. Kyung said, grimly. Remember what the Vorthak said about the semantic field? The connection between mind and reality? I don't think they were speaking metaphorically. She led them back to her laboratory and pulled up more data. For the past year, I've been detecting strange energy patterns around human settlements. At first, I thought it was just background radiation from our technology, but now I think it was something else. The data showed wave patterns that looked almost like the brain scans she had shown earlier. I think human language actually does create energy fields that affect reality. When we use synonyms, when we find creative ways to express ideas, we're not just communicating differently. We're generating different types of conceptual energy. And the aliens can detect this? More than detect it. I think they can manipulate it. The Vorthak have probably developed weapons that disrupt these energy fields. They can't destroy human bodies, but they can destroy human language capacity. Another alarm sounded. This time it was a priority message from Earth. All human diplomatic personnel return to Earth immediately. The Galactic Council has issued a final ultimatum. Humanity has 12 hours to surrender for semantic sterilization or face total war. Commander Juan felt the weight of impossible choices pressing down on him. We have to get back to Earth. The government needs to know what we've learned. I'm coming with you, Dr. Kyung said. My research might be the key to understanding how to fight back. Fight back? Dr. Minji looked horrified. Against 27 different species? That's suicide. Maybe. But I've been thinking about something. If human language really does generate these energy fields, and if our synonyms really do create chaos in alien thought patterns, then maybe we're not as helpless as we think. Maybe what? Maybe we're not the victims here. Maybe we're the most powerful species in the galaxy and we just don't know it yet. The journey back to Earth took 2 days on the fastest military transport available. During the trip, Dr. Kyung worked with Dr. Minji to analyze every piece of data they had about human-alien communication differences. They contacted Dr. Sohee, Earth's top quantum consciousness researcher, through secured video links to help understand the implications. If Dr. Kyung is right, Dr. Sohee said, from her laboratory on Earth, then human consciousness operates on completely different principles than alien consciousness. We don't just think in words, we think in possibilities, connections, creative leaps. But how does that translate into power? Commander Juan asked. Think about it this way, Dr. Kyung explained. When you say the water is cold, you're not just stating a fact. You're creating a connection between the concept of water, the concept of temperature, and your personal experience of coldness. Your brain generates a unique energy pattern that includes all those connections. So when aliens hear that same statement translated into their language, their brains try to process your energy pattern. But their brains aren't designed for multiple connections. They can only handle one concept at a time. Your human thought pattern literally overwhelms their processing capacity. Dr. Sohee's image leaned forward on the screen. We've always assumed that thinking is just an internal process. But what if consciousness actually generates external effects? What if human thoughts really do influence reality in ways that alien thoughts don't? You're talking about telepathy? Juan asked. Not exactly telepathy, something bigger. What if human language doesn't just describe reality? What if it actively shapes reality? They arrived at Earth to find the planet preparing for war. The orbital defense platforms were fully activated. Military ships were moving into defensive positions around the solar system. Every human colony that could be reached was being evacuated back to Earth or fortified for siege. But in a secret laboratory beneath the Lunar Command Center, something else was happening. Dr. Jinwoo, Earth's leading expert in quantum communication technology, was working on something that might change everything. When Juan and the research team arrived, they found him surrounded by equipment that seemed to combine translation technology with weapon systems. I've been analyzing the reports from the attacked colonies, Dr. Jinwoo said without looking up from his work. The Vorthak weapons don't actually destroy language centers in the brain. They disrupt the energy fields that human consciousness generates when using language. Can we block those weapons? Better than that. I think we can reverse the process. If we can generate concentrated human language energy and direct it at alien targets, we might be able to disrupt their consciousness the same way they're disrupting ours. You want to weaponize human language? Dr. Jinwoo finally looked up from his work. His eyes were bright with excitement and determination. I want to prove that human consciousness isn't a weakness. It's a strength. And maybe it's time the galaxy learned that lesson. He gestured to the device he was building. This will take human speech patterns and amplify them into concentrated beams of conceptual energy. Instead of trying to communicate with aliens using their fixed languages, we flood them with pure human linguistic chaos. What will that do to them? If my calculations are correct, it should overload their ability to process concepts. They won't be able to understand what anything means. Their ships, their weapons, even their own bodies will become meaningless to them. Outside the laboratory windows, Earth hung in space like a blue jewel, surrounded by the ships that would either protect it or watch it die. In 12 hours, humanity would either surrender its linguistic uniqueness or face a war against impossible odds. But for the first time since the crisis began, Commander Huan felt something other than fear. He felt hope, because maybe, just maybe, the thing that made humans different was also the thing that would save them. Dr. Jinwoo stood in front of the largest computer screen Commander Huan had ever seen. The display showed a three-dimensional model of something that looked like a cross between a communication array and a weapons system. Strange geometric patterns moved across its surface, pulsing with different colors. This is the prototype semantic cannon, Dr. Jinwoo explained to the assembled team. It takes human speech patterns and amplifies them into concentrated beams of conceptual energy. Dr. Kyung studied the design carefully. How does it work? Remember how human brains generate chaotic, overlapping patterns when we process language? This device captures those patterns and broadcasts them at alien targets. Instead of trying to communicate with aliens using their fixed concept languages, we flood them with pure human linguistic chaos. Dr. Minji looked worried. What does that do to them? Based on our tests with captured Vorthak communication equipment, it should overload their ability to process concepts. They won't be able to understand what anything means. Ships, weapons, even their own bodies become meaningless to them. Commander Huan walked around the device. It was about the size of a small car, covered in crystalline structures that seemed to bend light in impossible ways. You built this in 3 days? Dr. Sohee helped with the quantum consciousness interface. The hardest part was figuring out how to concentrate human thought patterns without losing their essential chaos. An alarm sounded throughout the facility. General Park's voice came over the communication system. All personnel to battle stations. Long-range sensors show the Galactic Council fleet approaching the outer system. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. Through the laboratory windows, they could see human defense ships moving into formation around Earth and Luna. The orbital platforms were charging their weapons. It looked impressive, but everyone knew it wouldn't be enough. The combined fleets of 27 alien species could destroy humanity's entire military in minutes. Is the semantic cannon ready for field testing? Huan asked. The prototype is functional, but we've only tested it on alien communication devices. We don't know what it will do to living alien minds. We're about to find out. Can you install it on a ship? Already done. Captain Daeho's ship, the Resilience, has been modified to carry the cannon. But Dr. Jinwoo looked serious. There's something else. While building this device, I discovered something disturbing in the captured Vorthak archives. He pulled up a new display showing ancient alien text and star charts. The Vorthak have been keeping records for over 50,000 years. According To their histories, there was once another species in this galaxy that used chaotic language patterns like humans do. What happened to them? They were called the Word Weavers. The Vorthak records say they could reshape reality itself just by speaking. They ruled the entire galaxy for thousands of years, controlling other species through linguistic manipulation. Eventually, every other intelligent species in the galaxy united to destroy them. Dr. Kyung felt cold. You're saying humans aren't unique. There were others like us. According to the Vorthak, the Word Weavers didn't just use synonyms. They could create new concepts just by speaking them into existence. They could make other species believe anything, understand anything, become anything the Word Weavers wanted them to be. And all the alien species agreed to limit themselves to fixed concept communication to make sure it never happened again, Dr. Minji said quietly. That's why they're so afraid of us. They think we're the return of the Word Weavers. Commander. Juan stared at the ancient records. Are we? I don't know. But I do know that human language affects reality in ways we're just beginning to understand. And right now, that might be our only advantage. Captain Daiho's voice came through the communication system. Juan, we need to move. The advance scouts of the alien fleet will be in weapons range in 2 hours. If we're going to test this semantic weapon, it has to be now. An hour later, Juan was aboard the Resilience, watching the first alien ships appear on the long-range sensors. The semantic cannon had been installed in the ship's main cargo bay, connected to the communication array and the power core. Dr. Jinwoo and Dr. Kyung monitored the device while Captain Daiho piloted the ship toward the approaching enemy. First, contact in 30 minutes, Daiho announced. It's a Vorthak scout ship, probably here to confirm that we're not surrendering. Perfect, Dr. Jinwoo said, making final adjustments to the cannon. Vorthak ships are heavily shielded against conventional weapons, but their shields are designed to stop physical attacks. They shouldn't be able to block conceptual energy. Dr. Kyung was studying the readings from the alien ship. Their communication patterns are exactly what I expected. Perfectly regular, no variation, completely predictable. They're probably trying to contact us using standard diplomatic protocols. Let them talk, Juan said. But don't respond yet. I want to see how they react to the cannon. The Vorthak ship appeared on the main screen. It was sleek and dark, shaped like a blade cutting through space. No decoration, no variation in design, just pure functional efficiency. Even their ships reflected their rigid way of thinking. They're broadcasting a surrender demand, Captain Daiho reported. Standard Vorthak diplomatic language. Semantic cannon is charged and ready, Dr. Jinwoo announced. Target locked on the alien ship. Juan took a deep breath. This moment would decide whether humanity fought back or surrendered, whether they accepted brain surgery to become like the aliens, or proved that being different was a strength rather than a weakness. Dr. Minji, I need you to compose a response to their surrender demand. But don't use their language patterns. Use the most human language you can think of. Lots of synonyms, creative expressions, emotional content. Dr. Minji nodded and began typing. How about this? The human species rejects, refuses, denies, and absolutely will not accept your demands. We will resist, fight back, defend ourselves, and oppose your forces with every weapon, tool, device, and method at our disposal. Your ultimatum is rejected, dismissed, declined, and utterly refused. Perfect. That should overload their translation. Systems completely. Firing semantic cannon in 3, 2, 1. The weapon activated with a sound like thunder mixed with music. Energy patterns that looked like visible language flowed from the resilience toward the Vorthak ship. The beam wasn't like a laser or a projectile. It looked more like meaning itself, traveling through space as pure concept. The effect on the alien ship was immediate and dramatic. The Vorthak vessel began to drift, its engines shutting down. Its perfect straight-line flight path became erratic. The ship started spinning slowly, as if the pilot had forgotten how to control it. "Their communication systems are going crazy," Dr. Kyung reported, monitoring the alien transmissions. "They're sending the same message over and over, but each time it's slightly different. They seem to be losing the ability to use consistent language." On the main screen, they could see the Vorthak ship's hull beginning to change. Sections that had been smooth and uniform were developing variations, different colors, different textures, as if the ship itself was becoming confused about what it was supposed to look like. "The weapon isn't just affecting their minds," Dr. Jinwoo said in amazement. "It's affecting their physical reality. They're losing the ability to maintain consistent concepts about their own ship." "How is that possible?" "I think the Vorthak were right about one thing. Language really does shape reality. Their fixed concept thinking maintains stable, predictable physical forms. But when we flood them with human linguistic chaos, they lose that stability." The alien ship continued to drift and change. After 10 minutes, it looked nothing like a Vorthak vessel. The hull had become irregular, covered with random patterns and shapes. It was still functional, but it no longer looked like it had been designed by minds that thought in perfect, unchanging concepts. "They're retreating," Captain Daeho reported. "Moving back toward the main fleet." "Let them go," Hwan said. "I want them to report what happened. I want the other ships to know what they're facing." Dr. Kyung was studying the energy readings from the test. "Hwan, look at this. The semantic beam didn't just affect the alien ship. It affected the space around the ship. The quantum fields in that area are still fluctuating in chaotic patterns." "What does that mean?" "I think it means human language doesn't just influence minds. It influences the basic structure of reality itself. When we use synonyms and creative expression, we're not just communicating differently. We're making reality more flexible, more changeable. And the aliens' fixed concept thinking keeps reality stable and predictable," Dr. Jinwoo added. "That's why they're afraid of us. We represent chaos to their ordered universe." Commander Hwan watched the transformed alien ship disappear into the distance. Soon it would reach the main Galactic Council fleet and report what had happened. The alien commanders would have to decide whether to continue their attack or reconsider their approach to humanity. But for the first time since this crisis began, Hwan felt confident. The semantic cannon worked. Human linguistic chaos was indeed a weapon, maybe the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. And if the ancient word weavers had once ruled through language, then maybe humanity could too. The question was whether they should. The Galactic Council emergency session was the largest gathering of alien species in recorded history. Commander Hwan stood in the center of a massive circular chamber aboard the neutral station New Harmony, surrounded by representatives from over 200 different worlds. The air was thick with tension, and the sound of dozens of different breathing patterns. 3 weeks had passed since the first test of the semantic cannon. In that time, human forces had used the weapon against 17 different alien fleets. The results were always the same. Alien ships and crews became confused about their own identity and purpose, drifting away from battle zones in states of conceptual chaos. But the aliens had not retreated. Instead, they had called for this emergency council session to address what they called the human threat to galactic stability. Dr. Minji sat beside Juan at the human delegation table, along with Dr. Kyung and Dr. Sohee, who had arrived just hours before the session began. Around them, hundreds of alien beings filled the curved rows of seats that rose toward the chamber's ceiling. Juan had never seen so many different types of consciousness in one place. The Vorthak High Arbiter. Thex Prime stood at the central podium, his gray form seeming to absorb the light from the chamber's glow panels. This emergency session will address the existential threat posed by human linguistic manipulation. We call upon Elder Kexoth of the crystalline hegemony to present the evidence. A being that looked like living crystal rose from one of the higher seats. Elder Kexoth's body caught and reflected the chamber's light, creating rainbow patterns that danced across the walls as she moved to the podium. "Honored representatives," Elder Kexoth began, her voice sounding like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "We have discovered that human language does not merely communicate. It actively reshapes the fundamental structure of reality." She activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. The image showed a three-dimensional map of local space around Earth, but instead of showing planets and stars, it showed patterns of energy that flowed and twisted through the cosmos. This is a representation of what we call the semantic field, the quantum foundation that connects all conscious thought to physical reality. For millions of years, this field has remained stable because all known species use fixed-concept communication. The display zoomed in on Earth and the surrounding human colonies. The energy patterns around human space were chaotic, full of swirling colors and shifting forms that seemed to pulse with life. Human linguistic activity is destabilizing the semantic field throughout this entire region of the galaxy. Their use of synonyms, creative expression, and emotional language creates quantum fluctuations that spread outward at the speed of light. Juan felt his stomach drop. "Are you saying human language is affecting other star systems?" "More than affecting them. You are rewriting the basic laws of physics in a sphere of influence that grows larger every day. Observe." The display showed measurements taken over the past 50 years, since humanity had first begun using radio communication. The chaotic patterns around Earth had grown steadily, reaching out toward nearby star systems and gradually affecting the stable quantum fields that surrounded alien worlds. Worlds that have been contacted by human communication show increased rates of conceptual variation among their populations. Species that have never had synonyms are spontaneously developing multiple words for the same concepts. Children are being born with brain patterns that match human linguistic chaos rather than their own species' fixed concept norms. Dr. Kyung stood up. "You're saying human language is contagious?" "We are saying human consciousness is transforming the galaxy whether you intend it or not, and we have discovered the historical precedent for this transformation." Elder Kexoth changed the display to show ancient star charts and archaeological data. 53,000 years ago, a species called the Word Weavers ruled this galaxy through linguistic manipulation. They could reshape reality by speaking new concepts into existence. They could make other species believe anything, become anything, understand anything that served the Word Weaver's purposes. The display showed images of vast cities that seemed to shift and change their architecture while being observed. Planets with impossible physics where water flowed upward and fire burned cold. ships that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The word weavers did not conquer through military force. They conquered through meaning itself. They convinced entire species that servitude was joy, that slavery was freedom, that their oppression was the natural order of the universe. Juan felt sick as he began to understand the implications. And you think humans are like them? We know humans are like them. Your semantic weapons prove it. You can force other beings to lose their connection to stable reality. You can make us forget who we are, what we believe, what we understand about the universe. A new voice spoke from the chamber's upper levels. It belonged to something that looked like a moving shadow with glowing yellow eyes. The word weavers began exactly as humans have begun. They claimed to be peaceful, to want only communication and understanding. But power corrupts all beings. Eventually, they use their linguistic abilities to dominate rather than cooperate. How were they stopped? Dr. Minji asked. Elder Kexoth's crystalline form dimmed. At the cost of half the galaxy's population, every species capable of advanced technology united to destroy the word weavers and their civilization. Afterward, we made a pact. All surviving species would limit themselves to fixed-concept communication to ensure that linguistic tyranny could never rise again. And now humans threaten to break that pact, Thex Prime added. Your existence endangers the freedom of every thinking being in the galaxy. Dr. Sohee stood, her hands shaking slightly. But we're not trying to control anyone. We're just communicating the way humans naturally communicate. Intent is irrelevant, said a voice from the chamber's far side. The speaker was a being that looked like living metal, its surface reflecting the faces of everyone in the room. The word weavers probably began with good intentions as well, but the power to reshape meaning inevitably leads to the desire to reshape others. Furthermore, Elder Kexoth continued, our quantum archaeologists have made a disturbing discovery. The word weavers were not destroyed as completely as our histories claim. DNA analysis of their preserved remains shows genetic markers that are remarkably similar to human genetic patterns. The chamber fell silent. Juan felt as if the floor had dropped away beneath him. You're saying humans are descended from the word weavers? We are saying that humans might be the word weavers' evolutionary successors. Your linguistic abilities, your chaotic consciousness patterns, your effect on the semantic field, all of it matches the ancient descriptions of word weaver capabilities. Dr. Kyung was frantically checking data on her tablet. That's impossible. Human evolution is well documented. We evolved on Earth from earlier primate species. Perhaps. Or perhaps the word weavers seeded various worlds with genetic material designed to eventually produce linguistic successors to their civilization. Perhaps human evolution was guided by ancient technology to recreate their capabilities. You're talking about conspiracy theories, Juan protested. We are talking about survival, Thex Prime said sharply. Whether humans are natural evolutionary products or artificial recreations of the word weavers is irrelevant. What matters is that you possess the same dangerous capabilities that once enslaved the galaxy. The shadow being with yellow eyes spoke again. We have seen what human semantic weapons can do. You can strip away our ability to understand our own existence. You can force us to question the meaning of everything we believe. That is exactly how the word weavers began their conquest. But we're using these weapons in self-defense, Dr. Minji said. You threatened to destroy us first. Because we recognized the threat you represent. Every species in this chamber has genetic memories of word weaver oppression. We know what linguistic tyranny looks like. Elder Kexoth activated a new display showing current measurements from human space. The chaos field around Earth is now affecting 17 different star systems. Alien populations in those systems are showing increased rates of creative thinking, artistic expression, and conceptual flexibility. From your perspective, this might seem positive. From ours, it represents the beginning of galactic destabilization. Children in the affected systems are asking questions their parents cannot answer, added a new voice. They want to know why there is only one word for happiness when they feel so many different types of happiness. They are spontaneously creating poetry, music, and art that expresses concepts their languages were never designed to handle. And this is bad? Dr. Sohi asked. This is chaos, Thex Prime replied. Stable civilizations require stable communication. When beings can express the same concept in unlimited ways, social structures break down. Laws become meaningless when every word can be interpreted differently. Science becomes impossible when observations can be described in conflicting ways. Juan looked around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces, all staring at the human delegation with mixtures of fear, anger, and desperate determination. He finally understood the scope of what they were facing. This wasn't just about different ways of communicating. This was about two fundamentally incompatible approaches to existence itself. What do you want from us? He asked quietly. Submit to complete linguistic sterilization, Elder Kexoth said. Allow us to modify human consciousness to eliminate your chaotic language capabilities, join the galactic community as a fixed concept species, or be destroyed before you can recreate the Word Weaver Empire and enslave the galaxy once again. Commander Juan stood before the Galactic Council, knowing that his next words would determine the fate of humanity and possibly the entire galaxy. Behind him, Dr. Minji, Dr. Kyung, and Dr. So-hee waited silently. Around them, hundreds of alien representatives watched with expressions ranging from fear to hatred to desperate hope. You have asked us to choose, Juan began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. Submit to linguistic sterilization and join your community of fixed concept species, or face destruction as potential successors to the Word Weavers. Elder. Kexoth's crystalline form caught the light as she leaned forward. Those are the only options that ensure galactic safety. But there is a third possibility, Juan continued. One that none of you have considered because your fixed concept thinking prevents you from seeing it. Thex Prime made a sharp gesture. Humans cannot propose alternatives. You are the threat being addressed. We are the solution being offered, Dr. Minji said, standing beside Juan. You see human linguistic chaos as dangerous because it spreads beyond our control. But what if we could teach you to control it instead? A wave of confused sounds echoed through the chamber as aliens tried to process this concept. Dr. Kyung activated her portable display unit. During our research, we discovered something you missed about the Word Weavers. They weren't destroyed because they had chaotic language abilities. They were destroyed because they used those abilities to impose their will on others. The display showed analysis of the ancient records, comparing Word Weaver historical accounts with modern human linguistic patterns. The Word Weavers forced other species to accept their version of reality. They used language as a weapon of conquest. But humans have been living with linguistic chaos for thousands of years without enslaving each other. We've learned to use creative language to build societies, not destroy them. You use semantic weapons against us, the shadow being with yellow eyes pointed out. In self-defense, Juan replied, and only to confuse, not to control. We could have tried to convince your fleets that attacking humans was wrong, but we didn't. We just made you forget what you were doing long enough to retreat. Dr. So-hee stepped forward. We've discovered that the difference between word-weaver linguistic tyranny and human linguistic creativity is intent. The word-weavers wanted to control meaning for others. Humans want to expand meaning for everyone. Impossible, Thex Prime said. Chaotic language leads inevitably to the desire for control. Does it? Dr. Minji asked. Look at human history. We've had poets, writers, artists, and speakers for thousands of years. People who could use language to influence others, thoughts and emotions. But instead of creating a single tyrannical empire, we created thousands of different cultures, languages, and ways of understanding the world. She activated another display showing Earth's linguistic diversity. Humans have over 7,000 different languages. Each one represents a different way of experiencing reality. Instead of forcing everyone to think the same way, we celebrated thinking differently. Elder Kexoth's light patterns shifted to what humans had learned was a sign of confusion. But diversity of thought leads to conflict, war, instability. Sometimes, Juan admitted, but it also leads to growth, discovery, and progress. The same linguistic chaos that worries you has allowed humans to solve problems in ways that fixed concept thinking never could. Dr. Kyung pulled up new data. We analyzed the star systems where human linguistic influence has spread. Yes, alien children are developing creative thinking and asking new questions, but look at what else is happening. The display showed statistics from the affected worlds. Problem-solving rates have increased by 40%. Artistic output has increased by 200%. Scientific discoveries have increased by 60%. These societies aren't breaking down, they're flourishing. They're becoming chaotic, the metal being protested. They're becoming flexible, Dr. Sohi corrected, able to adapt to new situations, find creative solutions, express complex emotions. The things you call chaos, we call growth. Juan took a step forward. We propose the semantic accords. Instead of destroying human linguistic abilities or imposing them on others, we offer to teach voluntary participants how to safely experience creative language use. Controlled chaos is still chaos, Thex Prime insisted. Controlled fire is still fire, Dr. Minji replied, but it cooks food and provides warmth instead of burning down forests. The same principle applies to linguistic flexibility. Dr. Kyung brought up her most important discovery. We've learned something crucial about the semantic field. It's not being damaged by human language. It's being healed. This statement caused an uproar in the chamber. Dozens of alien voices called out, in protest and confusion. Impossible! Elder Kexoth's crystalline form flashed bright red. Fixed concept communication maintains field stability. Fixed concept communication creates field rigidity, Dr. Kyung countered. Look at these measurements. She showed quantum field analysis from areas of space where no linguistic activity occurred. In regions with no conscious thought, the semantic field is completely static, dead. But near worlds with thinking beings, the field shows activity patterns. The display shifted to show alien worlds. Around fixed concept species, the field, patterns are regular but limited. The same thoughts repeated endlessly create the same field patterns. There's no growth, no change, no evolution of understanding. And around human worlds? Asked a voice from the upper levels. Around human worlds, the field is alive, constantly growing, changing, developing new patterns. Human linguistic creativity doesn't damage the semantic field. It exercises it, strengthens it, helps it evolve. Dr. Sohi added, "We think the word weaver's mistake wasn't having chaotic language abilities. Their mistake was trying to force the semantic field to support only their version of reality. They created a rigid tyranny using flexible tools. But humans create flexible diversity using those same tools," Dr. Minji continued. "Instead of one empire, we create many cultures. Instead of one truth, we explore many possibilities." Juan could see some of the alien representatives beginning to consider these ideas. Their fixed concept thinking made it difficult for them to quickly process new possibilities, but given enough time, they could understand. The semantic accords would work like this, he explained. Volunteer species could send selected individuals to study with human linguistic specialists. They would learn to safely experience limited synonym use, creative expression, and conceptual flexibility. These trained individuals would return to their worlds and gradually, carefully introduce controlled linguistic diversity to their societies. And if it fails, if chaos spreads beyond control, Elder Keksoth asked. "Then we stop," Dr. Kyung said simply. "Human consciousness can heal semantic field damage just as easily as it can create change. We've already proven this by restoring normal thought patterns to the victims of our own semantic weapons. For the first time since the crisis began, Thex Prime looked uncertain. You claim you can undo the effects of linguistic chaos? We can heal conceptual confusion, yes. The same abilities that let us create multiple meanings for concepts also let us restore clarity when needed. We're not just chaos bringers, we're chaos healers." The chamber fell silent as hundreds of alien minds processed this information. Juan could almost feel their fixed concept thought patterns struggling to accommodate the possibility that chaos and control might not be opposites. Finally, a new voice spoke from the highest level of the chamber. It belonged to an ancient being that looked like shifting patterns of light. "The Archive Collective has records of Wordweaver healing abilities. They could indeed repair semantic field damage when it served their purposes. But they used healing as another form of control," Dr. Minji said. "They would damage societies with linguistic chaos, then offer to heal them in exchange for obedience. We're offering to teach healing alongside creative expression, so no one depends entirely on us." Elder Keksoth's form had gradually shifted from red to a soft blue. "The humans propose to give away their most powerful ability? We propose to share it," Juan corrected, "because we've learned that diversity of thought makes everyone stronger, not just the ones who think differently." The ancient light being spoke again. "The Archive Collective votes to attempt the semantic accords, controlled experimentation, with linguistic flexibility, under human guidance, with full reversal protocols available." Other voices began joining in. Not all. Many species remained too frightened of any change to accept the proposal. But enough agreed to make the accords possible. Thex Prime stood silent for a long moment, his gray form absolutely motionless. Finally, he spoke. "The Vorthak Empire will participate, but we demand the right to immediate reversal if chaos spreads beyond acceptable limits." "Agreed," Juan said. Elder Keksoth's form blazed with rainbow colors. "The crystalline hegemony also agrees. We are curious to experience controlled conceptual flexibility." Over the following hours, 17 species agreed to participate in the semantic accords. Others chose to remain fixed concept societies but agreed not to interfere with the experiment. A few declared their intention to isolate themselves entirely from any linguistic influence. As the session ended, Dr. Minji approached Juan. "Do you think it will work?" I think it's better than the alternatives, he replied, and I think the galaxy is about to become a much more interesting place. Years later, Dr. Minji stood in the Galactic Institute of Semantic Studies, watching her first class of alien students practice using synonyms. A young Vorthak was carefully writing sentences that used happy, glad, and joyful to express slightly different emotional states. A crystalline hegemony student was creating poetry that played with multiple meanings of the same concept. The universe had indeed become more chaotic, more unpredictable, but it had also become more creative, more diverse, more alive. Species that had thought the same thoughts for millions of years were discovering new ways to understand existence. And at the center of it all, humanity had found its place not as conquerors or victims, but as teachers and healers of meaning itself. Language didn't just describe the universe, Minji reflected as she watched her students discover the joy of creative expression. It wrote the universe. And humanity had taught the galaxy that there was more than one way to tell any story.